Yo, I'm Brendan, and I finally got my dividend portfolio up to $10,000, 5 figures. It's been a hard-fought battle, but we're finally here. But now the question is, will this thing generate enough profit to where it's life-changing money? Are these dividends gonna let me take my wife out to dinner every month for free? Are they gonna afford me to buy a really fun car, like a used Mazda Miata or maybe a classic Porsche? Let's see. This is of course my own experiment, but it's also an experiment for you because we get to find out today what 10 grand does when it's all invested in dividend paying stocks and ETFs. So to find this out, let's jump into the spreadsheet. I'll put up what I see on my screen right here for you so you can follow along. So the interesting thing is back in August, I deposited enough to get over that $10,000 mark. Before then, I only had $1,216 invested. Then I got all the way up to $10,218. So I put in a little over $9,000 to make this thing rounded out and over that $10,000 mark. But the problem was it didn't show up for like 2 months. Check this out. So in August, we were still getting dividends from the previous months. And really that's kind of how dividends work. You get paid based on the money that you had invested back when those companies announced they were going to pay a dividend. It doesn't happen right away. So of course this threw me off initially because I'm going, hey, I've got $10,218 in here. Why am I only making $5 this month in dividends? That makes no sense. That's only 0.06% this month, or if you make that for the whole year, that's only 0.67%. That's like pennies, that's nothing. But it wasn't taking into account all of the money that I had just put in there as far as reflecting in a new dividend amount. So August was really meager, only $5 in dividends, not the best. Then September came along and crushed it. I love you, September. For one thing too, some of these dividends are only quarterly payers. So on certain months like September or December or March or whatever the quarterly thing lands on, that's when you're gonna get the big payouts too. So for me, this was a big payout month, plus it actually reflected the fact that I had 10 grand invested. So let's check this out. Of course, we have our normal little small ones like weekly that pays us every week. It's not that great, but it's kind of fun to get a dividend every week. Then we had some heavy hitters come in. JEPI, 25 bucks. SPYD, 36 bucks. VIGI, almost $1. SCHD, 7 bucks. So all that totaled up together to make $73 just in 1 month, me doing nothing, just leaving the money there invested. I didn't invest any new money in September whatsoever. It was all just receiving dividends and then getting reinvested. So if we do the math and we figure out how much money that amounts to if the whole year was like September was, that's 8.65%, which is pretty awesome as far as gains go. At that rate, if we got that same amount every month for the whole year, we'd be making $883 in cash doing nothing. What I really want to know is this life-changing money? What does this mean for me and my life and my wife? Can we do more fun stuff because of this money being put here? Well, if we average all the percentages I've had this entire year, not just taking into account this crazy last month, but overall the percentage of return that we've gotten, we average that out all together, that's 7.78% in dividends. So that's kind of fun to go, hey, I'm gonna get this cash back that I can use for whatever I want in my life. That's almost $800 per year when we've got 10 grand invested. And that means every month I get $66.24 on average. So is it enough to buy a cool Porsche? No. Is it enough to take my wife out to dinner once a month? Depending on where we go, yeah, that could work. Unfortunately, not life-changing money. And the crazy thing about the stock market is, especially if you look at your accounts recently here, the market's been doing pretty bad because of the other rates you can get elsewhere. So normally a dividend portfolio that makes you 7-8% dividends is pretty freaking awesome. But right now, because you can make 7% on some certificates of deposit, because you can make 5.15% on savings accounts, all these standard, safe, FDIC insured investment vehicles, well, they're not really technically investment vehicles, they're savings vehicles. Because our savings vehicles are so good right now, it makes investing that much less appealing. Because there is risk with this. People look at this and go, I don't know about that, buddy, because that's going down in value. Where if I had that money in a CD, or if I had that money in something like a savings account, it's not gonna go down in value, it can't. So all I'm gonna make is gains. So in that sense, yeah, am I risking a little bit more than I need to? Maybe, but I started this basically a year ago now, so I needed to do something at that point, and interest rates still weren't that compelling, but now they are. So do you get out of all your investments now and go strictly into something like bonds or treasuries or savings notes or other things like that? I don't think so. I think the fact that it's really appealing right now can trick some people into thinking that they should shift in that direction, when oftentimes when we do that, we're just gonna miss out on the next ride upwards in the stock market. Because what's the stock market gonna do? It's gonna go back up. So having the money here, having it invested, is gonna help me be ready for whenever that ride comes. I am tempted to pull this money out and go on an awesome trip to drive race cars in Germany though, so we'll see. That may threaten the balance of this account. But what else will threaten the balance of this account is the fact that this will be my last dividend update video of the kind. At least the last one I have planned. Because frankly, nobody watches these. Me, you, the other 220 people who watch them, I love you guys. I love you right now because you're watching this. But by the numbers, YouTube doesn't care about this. The people of YouTube don't really care about this. So it's my fault for not making more compelling, interesting, educational, or otherwise good videos. And so I'll take accountability for that. But what it means for me is it's typically not a good use of my time in my life to make these videos when I'm gonna make literally 50 cents off of this video today. So I think what that means is if you wanna know more about my dividend investing stuff, then you can message me, find me on Instagram or email me or whatever, but that you pretty much know by now what my MO is when it comes to dividend investing. One other question I thought would be fun to answer with this is, where did this money come from? How do you just pull 9 grand out of thin air and put it in your dividend portfolio? Well, it wasn't in thin air. It was in my Acorns portfolio because I had been investing in Acorns pretty heavily for the last 3 or 4 years. And so that money was just sitting in there, not doing nothing. It was invested, but I just frankly thought it would be a lot more fun for it to be here getting me dividends than to be sitting there and just going up and down a little bit on the little Acorns chart. I chose to do the more entertaining thing and put it in this account when maybe that's not the wisest thing overall, but it felt like the most fun at the time. I think for me, the summary with dividends is similar to that with all kinds of investing. The earlier we get started, the more it compounds, the more powerful it becomes. Because right now, with these numbers still fairly small, it's a little bit exciting to imagine what it can do for you, but it's not that exciting. But if we added a 0 to those numbers, suddenly that becomes very exciting. Would you take $660 per month? That sounds pretty awesome. That's some people's rent. That's like a third of our mortgage. No, it's more than a third of our mortgage. It's creeping up on half of our mortgage there, just paid for. Maybe that's all of your groceries for your family for the whole month, paid for every month. So that ball starts to roll and you go, wow, this could be really powerful if I keep doing this and I keep letting that stack up. Because then imagine if you added another 0 to that, $6,660 per month. That's like, I can retire. I can live off that money for the rest of my life now. So with all these things, just because the numbers are still fairly small doesn't mean that they're not powerful. Because the percentages are really what we need to be paying attention to, not so much these small numbers. But, you know, you've got to stick it out. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years before this really becomes those big numbers, and that can be tricky to do. We're impatient people, right? Let me know if you're still dividend investing. What's happening in your life and your money right now? Is this still something that you're interested in and you think is worthwhile? Or are you fed up with it and you feel like it's time to get out and move into CDs or something else? Or maybe a more fun question would be, if you were making $6,000 a month extra from dividends, what would you do? Would you retire? Would you buy some baller cars? Would you take your significant other on a date 2 or 3 times a week and just be like the most romantic person ever in history? What would you do? Let me know. The secret comment word for today is fall, because it's fall in Arizona. My gosh, it's taken us forever to get here, but it's under 100 degrees and it's 2 o'clock outside. Where am I right now? This is like a dream world. I love it. All right, I gotta go. See you guys. Bye.